If you're wondering why you're getting this video today of all days, then you can thank my wife because she thought I should make a video about what happened. Because a lot of stuff did happen on Saturday, and I thought, well, what's the point of splitting sprint and qualifying? Let's just combine them all together. Winners and losers, sprint style. Like the idea? Like the video. And Lando Norris kicks off the winners. Despite having a less than perfect Friday, Saturday felt like a turning point. Because yes, initially he did start behind the likes of Piastri, and Piastri did get off into the lead and get about 3 seconds or so at peak ahead of Lando. However, Norris was able to make use of his better understanding of intermediate tyres and show that Piastri still has some work to do, and managed to close the gap very, very quickly, and probably would have taken Piastri on the road, but then of course the safety car happened, and that pretty much cemented everything, and Lando getting his second win, the Grand Prix of last year, and now a sprint win. But you can't deny, in these conditions, Lando was faster, and this is exactly the kind of boost that he needed after a triple header that was not that great. But this, oh yes, this is proving to be a very, very helpful stomping ground for him. And even though he's only taken 1 point out of Piastri's lead in the championship, it won't matter. He would have gotten a win under his belt, and he was able to overcome a Mercedes and his teammate to do so. Yeah, okay, the qualifying session didn't translate into a dream result or anything like getting a pole, but still, he is on the front row, he has the inside line. And what Piastri proved to us all is that if you have the inside line at Miami turn 1, you've got yourself an advantage. But then you got Max Verstappen next to you. Because what this has proven is if you just make the Miami International Autodrome completely damp or just wet or whatever, oh, it suddenly gets more interesting. Why didn't we have this before? How come Florida have been so dry when I know from experience Florida gets damp? This moist Miami. Sorry, okay, that was a little much. It's a bit early in the morning. But seriously, do look forward to this race because we got a re-energized Max, a Lando who's probably feeling quite confident, and he does have the advantage. And if things go really well and Piastri can't really get much past 4th or barely gets on the podium and Lando wins, Norris can get the championship back. But yes, Max Verstappen. Say what you will about what went down in the sprint, we got a Max who showed that quite rightly. Father energy is powerful energy. I've not denied that a single second. The moment that my daughter was born, I felt like a changed man, like the weights of the world didn't matter so long as I had her in my arms and just protecting this newborn force. And I'm pretty sure that Max is feeling the same way. Even though he isn't present at the moment, he will be as present as he can be. I think he's going to be a great dad. And what better thing to introduce Lily's existence into the world by getting pole against the odds. And remember how dangerous Max can be around Miami. He uses this track to completely decimate those who dare oppose him. Checo 2023. We might get that again. We might not. Lando might have the experience to be able to go toe-to-toe with him, because after all, Norris has probably been spending the winter training up against how to fight Max. This is a good example. But then again, the disastrous sprint. Not his fault. But he did have to suffer an unsafe release into Antonelli, which got him a 10-second penalty, and completely nuked his point streak that dates back to 2016 through no fault of his own. 9 years, Christian! 9 years, and it's gone! But in qualifying, he did it again. He pulled out one of those laps that just comes out of nowhere. Oh, he's going to be a favourite for Sunday. But one more team slip up, and the title defence takes another dent. Because seriously, it's these kind of mistakes, the really fundamental ones that can easily make or break a victory or even a championship. These are the kind of things that would make anyone reconsider their options if they are racing for a particular team. Not the fundamental race pace or car development. No, just getting your pits right. Because who on earth made the decision to put him out in front of Antonelli? I'm pretty sure the only person he would have wanted to talk to after the race was Kimi, and apologising profusely on the team's behalf. Because I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to stoke the ire of Kimi, especially as that young Italian, the Italian Verstappen, suddenly gets even more experience, and we go to tracks that he already knows. Because come on, how could I not put Kimi here? This rookie smashes expectations, where everyone was thinking that the rookies would completely flounder here. Yes, I know, he lost the sprint pole off the line, but honestly, considering how young he is and how much he's broken a record, does that even matter? Because he learnt from the school of hard knocks about what it takes to go up against the elite, and he didn't get overly angry, he was just a little bit churlish and was like, okay, good to know. this is how it works. So he won't be making that same mistake again. And guess who's right behind him on the second row? Yep, it's Oscar. And, oh, okay, that's going to be spicy. We go to qualifying, it's P3. And I felt so bad for him in the sprint hit situation that he effectively got given a drive-through penalty through no fault of his own because he had to go around again and then do another pit stop. But you got to admit that his reactions and driving made sure that he didn't sustain much damage, and ultimately, due to all of the post-race shuffles and positions, he did come away with points anyway, which really emboldens my decision of putting him right here. And he is still so quick, because I think he was within a tenth. No, he was within a tenth of Verstappen on pole. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And what's even more reason to put him in the winner section? He showed up George. Already. In just 6 races. We haven't even got to Europe yet. And I get the feeling that Mercedes might feel a little bit frisky. Throw caution to the wind. Maybe give him a chance to push early, whilst Russell, he might go long on harder tyres to maybe claw some points back. Because I really think it depends on what the rain does or doesn't do, because there is going to be rain forecast here. And I think many people who are watching the F1 Academy race, and it was a pretty good one to be fair, everyone was just like, oh my god, the rain, it's happening, the rain is falling, it's raining, it's pouring. But yes, George, clearly far less composed than Antonelli this weekend. He managed to net 5 points anyway from the sprint, but he looked visibly more shaky, although he claimed he was faster than Kimi in the actual mini-race. Oh, do I detect a little bit of frustration that the young guy is suddenly showing him up? I mean, I still think George is having a fantastic season, and he's probably going to be getting yet another top 5 finish anyway, because he did so in the sprint. He's continuing his own streak, but, you know, this is really fast. This is all happening. I mean, we probably knew this would have happened in maybe like a... What did I tell you about father energy? But I don't think that this was really expected from Russell. Even though he is a decent person around Miami, I think he has actually been shown up by Kimi. A solid P5 in quali, yeah, that's alright, in front of both Ferraris at least, and he does have an opportunity to maybe undercut those ahead if the opportunity emerges, or a virtual safety car. But yeah, top 5 finish, considering the Williams are behind them, that's a dead cert. But the fact remains though, is that George right now will be probably playing support for Kimi. And that is still very interesting to say, but I don't think that'll be the last time I say it either. Now, Williams, this was a very difficult decision because the banhammer did come down hard on the likes of Albon, but you know what? Considering the pace alone and the fact they did qualify ahead of both Ferraris, okay, they're in the winners section, okay? Because you've only got to look at what happened in qualifying in Q3, and you just got to go, look at it! Look at it! Look at how fast they are! Yes, Carlos crashed out of the sprint and sprint qualifying, but then roared back in qualifying for P6. The FW47 showing it's strong here, maximising the old straight line power whilst not really sacrificing much in the corners, to net Williams a similar starting slot we saw in Vegas 2023. Which was arguably the last time that Williams could really get a major points haul from both cars, but then completely fumbled it due to the safety car and their strategy completely falling apart. But if Carlos and Alex can get a clean launch and the strategy works out, they could cause real problems for Leclerc in any attempts at getting a fight back, as well as Tsunoda. And with Alex, yeah, the 5-second penalty did nuke his P4 sprint result, but the speed was real. And if he can shadow Carlos, they could split strategy perhaps their way into a real big midfield ambush and claim back those Saturday points and then some. Because make no mistake, this could be a huge opportunity to smash past their points tally of 2023 and get closer to that 2017 target to really show that this is not another false dawn. Because if they keep where they are right now, 14 points is handed to them like Haas were able to get in China, and Haas with Ocon in 9th? Yeah, 2. Alpine's not able to answer. I mean, they got 1 point from Gasly in the sprint. Aston Martin, okay. I mean, Stroll was able to, fly the flag a little bit, but this would be nothing. Double figures for Williams. They'd be locked into 5th place handily. And this is the same team who said that they've stopped active development on this year's car. They're only working with the parts they've already made. So, what a show of strength. And then we get to the mess section, and Lewis Hamilton, this was Shanghai all over again. The slick tyre gamble did launch him into 3rd in the sprint and a much needed boost for his confidence, considering that Leclerc didn't even make the start. Yeah, because Ferrari decided to send both men out on intermediate tyres, which were the tyres for the sprint race itself, but at a time when it completely bucketed it down, and Leclerc aquaplaning, he was a passenger. Lewis managed to get through, but then the qualifying in the dry, oh, that was a shocker. Struggling to find grip, he starts 12th. Probably on hards, trying to hope for more rain or a safety car bailout to make the most and try and get a similar result that he got in the sprint. Unpredictable, but not out of it. And then Oscar Piastri. Yeah, I'm not afraid to call my boy out. This was a bit of a mixed bag, honestly, because sure, he was able to get it on the front row. He did lead part of the sprint, quite handily so. However, it does still prove that in terms of tyre management on non-slick tyres, there is still a little bit of work to be done. He ultimately lost the lead under safety car conditions when Norris pitted first, and Norris had preserved more rubber, and in qualifying, Q3 it lacked. He said so himself, he didn't have any rhythm, and he failed to match or even perfect his Q2 time, which might have been enough to maybe snag a front row slot, or at least be ahead of Antonelli. Now in terms of long stint race pace, McLaren may still have the edge, it might still be a 1-2, but you know, you got to consider what Antonelli may do at the start, the long race pace of the Mercedes, that might still be handy. Verstappen may fade away because the RB21 might not have that race pace, especially in the slow corners. But you know Max, you can't discount him out entirely, so we might get Oscar back on the podium, but it's seriously going to take a dent in terms of the championship campaign. I mean, not he's really bothered about it, he keeps saying that he doesn't really care at the moment. We're only a quarter of the way into the season, but this will be a big boost for Lando, which will make the drama even more spicy. Now, I did think about Yuki Tsunoda being a winner here, but I must point out that it was a lack of communication from Red Bull, seemingly, that got him out in SQ1. Because you've only got to look at the data when you see all of those transponders going around, Verstappen just fumbling around the corner after the long straight, not really sure what was going on there, and then Tsunoda dawdled. I don't know whether that was his own error or communication lacking on the pit wall, but either way, he missed out on the checkered flag by a couple of seconds, meaning he couldn't go again because he did make a mistake on the previous lap. So there wasn't any chance to really try and redeem himself. That was another snafu from Red Bull there, thanks. However, he was able to do a little bit of trailblazing. He was the first, I think, to go on to 6. No, he was. And ultimately, it did benefit him, and he did get his way ultimately back up to 6th, and was the only Red Bull racing driver to score points. Sure, it's only small potatoes with 3 points, considering what they could have had with Verstappen, but then again, at least there were potatoes to have. And sure, he starts P10, quite a ways behind Verstappen in terms of pace, but if he can manage tyre life and execute a clean first stint, he could still be a threat for the top 6 and get ahead of the Williams, but at least we can all say that he's been calm about the whole thing, because to be fair, he'd have every right to be frustrated at Red Bull for all of the finagling or dithering or whatnot, and then people saying in the comments that Red Bull told him to slow down, so that means Verstappen wouldn't lose the 10 seconds, that means he could still get at least 1 point. What? That was really weird. Can you confirm this? Because I've heard rumblings about this. What's Red Bull doing? But hey, Yuki didn't get angry at all. You would have expected him to have been angry about SQ1, but no. He was able to get something out of it, although he is lacking ultimate pace. Now, I felt the absolute compulsion to at least put Gabi in the mixed bag section, because the sprint race itself, I mean, it wasn't really anything to write home about, P15 or something like that, but it was Q2. The fact he even got into Q2, which really gets him a slot above the losers where you would expect from Sauber. Because I swear to Bernie Collins, he was about to net himself a place in Q3 because, yeah, the sprint was clean, but Q2 was great for him in the Sauber, and 13th is not a bad showing, and he was only about a couple of tenths off of 10th place. Tsunoda. If this race turns tactical or messy, the Brazilian rookie might sneak in a point. This was quietly impressive, and I really need to actually assert this to you, that he was just clearly more competitive, feisty than Nico Hülkenberg, who's usually the reason why Sauber is starting to smile a little bit more. But Gabi's actually showing his own, even though it's been really discreet and just in the background, no one really paying much attention to him. But maybe that was for the best. Maybe Wheatley, slowly but surely, as well as with Mattia Binotto, they are tightening up the ship a little bit with every single race. It's not much, but either way, I can imagine Jonathan being really, really busy every time there's a single pit stop snafu, going, "Jonathan, what do you think about the Red Bull controversy?" And then he has plenty of promotion for Sauber as well, because, well, he's the team principal now. And then Lance Stroll, the very textbook definition of how the heck did he get there? Well, to be fair, these are damp conditions, he does excel in them, and he was able to master things well, and through all of the shuffling, he got P5. Another chunk of points, 4 of them in fact. So yes, 14 points to Aston Martin's name, and they are all Lancers. Now, I'm going to put up the phone of doubt here, because we'll get to Alonso's section in a moment, but there may be rumblings that, is there favouritism going on here? Not necessarily sabotage, but, convenient hearing, as what I'm hearing from the likes of Spanish audiences. But nevertheless, you've got to be in it to win it, and you've not got to bin it. and Lance didn't bin it. He still got those points. He managed to come back from a dreadful sprint qualifying session, but the reason why I don't put him in the winners list is obvious, because 19th. You cannot, in any conscionable reality, put him in the winners section being second to last. It just goes to show that Aston Martin in the wet or damp, not bad. It actually works out for them, but no, not in the dry. No, absolutely not. No, that car is terrible. That's the brand new tractor. At least the Sauber can do stuff. And now, the losers section. Charles Leclerc was unfortunate, but alas, it must have been the water that did it. Aquaplaning during the sprint formation lap, it left him powerless to do anything, wrecking the right side of his car, ruling him out of the sprint before the lights even took place. Nothing to say about the sprint, so surely qualifying would have been right. He got into Q3, right? So that's not too bad. Nope! Behind both Williams, behind his old teammate. That must have been a little bit galling. P8. Sure, he did outqualify Hamilton, but I don't really think Ferrari would be happy with that, because 8th place, and probably staring in the face the reality of being the 5th fastest car here, because this Williams is pretty good. If we'd been saying that the Williams were quicker than the Ferrari and this were the 2000s, you wouldn't bat an eye. You'd be thinking, well, okay, this was just a power circuit for Williams. But this is 2025 here, and this is a car which, again, the FW47 is not being developed anymore. This is just bizarre how both these drivers, Albon, Sainz, they're powering through. Leclerc, he's trying to blaze his own trail, and Ferrari's got nothing to blaze because it's all been dampened by the water. So yeah, unless that rain hits and Leclerc can actually keep it on the road and rely on more safety cars and crashes and stuff like that, I doubt that he's going to get anywhere near the top 5. Unless there's a major accident which takes anyone from the top out. He might be lucky to match Lewis's 6-point sprint haul. Yeah, 7th. Then Fernando. This was absolutely painful. It wasn't that Fernando was slow, far from it. He claimed that he might have been in contention for a podium in the sprint, as he was legitimately fighting Hamilton for P3. But then reportedly, he tried to make an early call onto slicks, but then he was denied by the pit wall, so he came in a little bit later, so much of the benefits were negated, and he ultimately found himself not chasing after Lewis, but instead trying to get another point for P7 with Liam, and we all know that what happened. People debating about why it took so long for that penalty to be confirmed, because everyone was looking at the footage and saying, well, technically, Liam did get his mirror right next to the tyre, so he did have the corner, and then Alonso didn't, give him space, so he was pushed out, so what were you expecting him to do? So there was a little bit of finagling about the technicalities there, which I'm pretty sure Fernando would have detested, because this wouldn't have been of like in 2000s, and, maybe you could easily argue that he just didn't leave the space, because all the time you have to leave a space! But yeah, he got shoved into the wall, leaving him still with no points to his name. The repair job did leave him in P17, so he did have a compromised car, but only chaos or a downpour would offer him lifeline. And I do think it's the beginnings of some discontent seeping in, because you rarely hear Fernando actually go this ham into criticising the team and their strategy. Usually he tries to keep a little bit diplomatic. This isn't the McLaren days, or even the Alpine days anymore. Yeah, this is kind of different, which would be the reason why many people would start to speculate that maybe they are angling Aston Martin for Max after all, and they are pushing their old guard out the door. I mean, it's too early to say, but, it's going to get people speculating, their spanners, starting to rise. And then we do have to talk about Liam, because, oh dear, he was so close to getting a couple of points and starting up his account, but it resulted in butt kiss. Yeah, you could easily say he was fast to get himself back into the points for the sprint, but he was still too furious. And I bet you that the sales of Kiwis in Spain will absolutely nosedive after this, or they will rise in preparation to hurl them at said Kiwi at the Spanish Grand Prix. But yeah, you can't deny that what happened there did wreck Alonso's race, so it was right for him to get some kind of a penalty. And then you look to Q2, 15th, I think again, and Hadjar out qualifying. You might be wondering where Isak is, and he was okay. I just felt like he was really close towards Q3. It was very, very nip and tuck. So I just felt like for this particular video, there wasn't really too much to say to dedicate something, but I'm pretty sure that the race might yield something, because he is in spitting distance of a point and maybe nipping Tsunoda. But yeah, Liam, call your jets. Better than last year, but it still needs work. And then Oliver Bearman. This was a heartbreaker. Another gutsy charge from the back to points, undone by a 5-second unsafe release penalty. But to be fair, there is some reasons to be happy about all of this, because in tricky conditions, he actually held his own. It's certainly a lot more improved than it was in Brazil, where he was fighting that car just to even stay on the track. This is a marked improvement and showing that experience is definitely helping him. And we have seen burns from the stern from Oliver before this year. This looked like yet another one of those. And it's only for a point, yes, but 0.6 points mean prizes and Oliver's doing his part for Haas, but ultimately it was denied due to bad timing in the pits. And then in qualifying, he ultimately did make some mistakes, so he is 20th again, twice in the same weekend, which isn't ideal, but we do know that he can get back into the points. He can emulate the likes of John Watson back in the 80s, who could burn from the stern. But quite honestly, I would rather him not have to burn so brightly and can actually have a decent, Q2 slot or even Q3. But either way, Oliver, it's not the end of the world. He is going to need a safety car or whatnot, or really have to overtake for his life here. But, there is cause for optimism, maybe, based on previous form. But it's still really tragic that it was through no fault of his own. Come on. But maybe Bearman might see red in a different way. That maybe he could be reunited with his Prema partner Antonelli in a theoretical Ferrari double act before the decade's out. To have a look at my fun little thought experiment that I had a couple of days ago, watch this video next, straight after this one.